all you pyros. This is PYROLITICAL coming to you live from the Capitol.
Hey, yeah, that's right. Here we are this, what are we, Friday, February 10th, 2017. Just a little bit of a recap as we spent some time at the Utah State Capitol today.
Yeah.
And wanted to give you a little bit of a live stream and let you know what we had going on. So we have streams going out to both Facebook and YouTube, our PYROLITICAL live channel.
It's intense.
It is so intense. So totally intense.
Camera one, camera two, camera one, camera two.
There we go. How's that? There we go.
So Randall was able to come up. I was excited because I was up here spazzing out all week by myself, but then he finally came into town, and so I felt like people took me more serious.
Yeah, well,
because he has a mustache. He looks like a grown-up.
It's about time.
No, so we had a good time. We session hopped and committee hopped and bebopped and beatboxed and
Did lots of stuff.
Yeah, there was some interesting things that we were watching. Like there was an actual good debate in the House this morning, and I streamed some of that. But they were talking about a con or a convention of the states, as it were.
Article 5 convention.
You were going to go look up our senator and ask him about that.
Well, yeah. So two things. First, it was Representative Nelson who sponsored it in the House and brought it forward, and they voted on it and approved it. And then it was Evan Vickers, who is my senator down in southern Utah, that was the Senate sponsor, and they were preparing to talk about it in the Senate, and I wanted to talk to him about it. We weren't able to get a hold of him or Representative Nelson to talk to him a little bit about it.
We tried.
Because there's some issues, there's some big issues with calling an Article 5 convention. In the document, they talk about the fact that they want to do an Article 5 convention because the states aren't well represented. They can't help basically overrule anything that the
which isn't
federal
true,
government does.
by the
Right.
way.
A little bit of nullification, maybe.
Little federalism. Let's implement 101. I'll teach them a class. It's not that hard. The 9th and 10th Amendment are there, but you made a good point, Randall, that the 17th Amendment kind of undermines that as far as representation in the federal government, or our power, the leverage there.
So it was interesting having this discussion or hearing them talk about it, because that was their big thing. We want to have more influence over legislation that's happening in Washington, D.C., so they're not just running roughshod over the top of us. And you know, that's a legitimate concern. We need to take care of that. But the first thought in my mind is 17th Amendment is what opened that Pandora's box, if you will. Because before that, the state legislators appointed the senators that went back to Washington, D.C. So
and they could call them home.
They could call them home.
And they could remove them.
Yeah.
That's the leverage that the states had over the Senate back then, and that was huge.
And so the fact that they would have things in Washington that they may disagree with, I mean, was very, it was less. They still had a say, you know, because the senator represented the states, the representatives represented the people. And that's the way it was set up, that's the way it was supposed to be. But because we lost the 17th Amendment, which Utah was the only state that did not ratify it, seems like a good place to maybe start from.
That is a cool little notch on our belt as a state.
Yeah, I think so. It seems like that would be a good place to start and maybe bring this back about. Anyway, we'd like to talk with both Senator Vickers and Representative Nelson and talk with them a little about it. Also, Ken Ivory spoke in favor of the bill. The other issue...
but he didn't like it. He said it's a slice, and he's right. It's basically creating new legislation to get something you already have. So what's the point? It just reinforces that the states have some powers.
Yeah.
Big deal. They already have those.
But the other issue is, and whenever anybody comes up with an Article 5 convention request, it's always the same. They say, okay, well, we're going to do this, and they're only going to be able to amend the Constitution or work on these specific amendments. Well, we only have one constitutional convention in history.
Example one.
It's example one, and they did exactly the opposite. The first thing they did, they were sent to amend the Articles of Confederation, and the very first thing they did is throw the articles out, because they weren't. There was no amending them. They were awful. And so the first thing they did was throw them out and start from scratch with a brand new document. And I don't think that we have the Thomas Jeffersons and the John Adams and the George Washingtons that I would want, you know, I mean, who's gonna be there? how are they going to select people to be at this constitutional convention? It's just, it baffles me that this keeps coming up and people can even conceive that this might be a possibility for saving our republic.
Well, in 2012, the Congressional Research Service, which is really the brainchild and the reference for U.S. Congress, they came out with, they say that there's 3 additional powers that Congress has in the calling of conventions. They get to choose who chooses delegates. They believe they get to determine whether it's a limited convention or it's an open convention. They get to determine the procedures during and before and after, and then they get to determine if the proposed amendments by the states are valid or are defective. And so that's what the CRS has said. So when we debate people on these issues about the Fifth Amendment, we're not anti-Fifth Amendment. We know it's in the Constitution. We know it's constitutional. However, it's so vague that there are powers that want to use it, yet they might just completely undermine liberty and lose control of it. But that's not even the biggest thing. What does Congress think today? It's not what the framers think.
Right.
They're dead and gone. We are the ones left here. So the fact is, whatever the ruling class we have today as the royalty back in D.C., they're going to determine what happens in that. So I just feel like it's constitutional, but it's not an effective or even a realistic route. Really, nullification is not nullification. It's the 9th and 10th Amendment in my
right.
opinion.
And so if states really want to get their teeth back, because they have the 9th and 10th Amendment, but 14th Amendment undermined it, and then the 17th Amendment was the death nail, because they lost. I mean, you talk to the average individual, and it's worded great. You have the ability to vote individually for your senator. That sounds fantastic. Everybody feels great. That's a very democratic principle, where we're not supposed to be a democracy. We're supposed to be a republic.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that probably shifted us most towards being more of a democracy than a republic, was that vote.
Yep.
And so you just think about it logically. If somebody votes for, like here in Utah, if somebody votes for, say, Senator Hatch, they're one of approximately 2 million votes in favor or against Senator Hatch. Do you think he knows any of those people?
We could get every Republican in southern Utah, which there's probably, 70, 80,000 voters, 50,000, and have every single person in the corner of the state vote against that senator, and still he'd stay in office.
Right.
We couldn't get 100,000 people to vote against him, and he would still be there thanks to the 17th Amendment. And so when we say we're not a democracy, we're a republic, that's what it means. It's a layer of representation that helps to whittle away at that popular vote mentality that the 17th Amendment, your vote, one vote, your voice, it's bull crap.
So when you want to affect change with your senator back in Washington, D.C., you're one of 2 million voices. So either you gave him a really large donation and he pays attention to you, or there's some way that he's going to remind you because you spent hundreds or thousands of hours on his campaign, and somehow his name or your name got to them. Otherwise, the way it worked under the 17th Amendment is that the 104 representatives of the State House would then choose typically someone from among the legislators at the House or the Senate that would go back to Washington, D.C. and represent the state itself. And so then if you had a concern because something was happening with your cattle in the BLM, or the BLM was, blocking access to your roads or whatever, you would go to your local representative, and then they would contact Orrin Hatch or Mike Lee, and they would say, wait a second, this is a problem for me because it's happening to one of my constituents, one of only 30,000 people, and if you're politically active, he probably knows you personally.
And how much easier is it to get 1 million people mad at a senator, or to get a few caucuses in a Republican Party angry at the senator, putting pressure on the state legislators who can take that guy out of office? That's so much easier. Just remember, the 17th Amendment is the special interest amendment. That's when national and international parties began donating to senators, because before that you would have had to bribe a huge majority of the state House and Senate. And I've actually read a lot of data on this. They only have 0.0 something percent. I can find that and put it in the description here. Percent of corruption charges before the 17th Amendment, meaning there were examples of corruption. That was the major reason why they said we need to get rid of the 17th Amendment, or we need the 17th Amendment.
Because we need more corruption.
No, they didn't say that part.
Yeah,
they said the first
didn't
half.
reveal that.
But it got so much worse because national companies can just come to our senator, our federal senator, and give him money for his campaign, and then he's beholden to them. He's not beholden to the state. He does not care about the state of Utah.
No, they show up once every 6 years to campaign, and all of a sudden the state means everything, and all the voters mean everything to them, and then the rest of the time, no, I don't need you. I don't care. And so this is an important issue. It's important for people to understand this, and it's important for people to realize that that's probably the biggest source of the ills here, and our fatal conceit that causes us to think that we can go and. You like our tripod here?
That's awesome.
Hey, thanks for your presentation.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Glad that we're PYROLITICAL Radio.
Oh, cool.
And what was your name again?
I'm Representative Dan McKay.
Dan McKay. This
Representative
is Dan
McKay. Yeah,
this is our live stream. YouTube,
Hello, everybody.
Facebook.
Yeah.
But we're really excited that the bill went the way it did.
Oh, great. So pyrotech, I'll look it up. This is awesome.
PYROLITICAL.
PYROLITIcal.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a mouthful.
It's a lot of syllables.
I got to be a little brighter than I am to be able to pronounce it. PYROLITIcal. PYROLITIcal.
Like pyro and political together.
Okay.
Hey, it's 5 syllables like representative.
Yeah.
You can do that.
I can get that one. It took me a little while though.
It took you a term.
Yeah, to get it right. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
That was exciting. I noticed all the other side they opened up real quick after that. So.
Well, when so much of your economic, livelihood depends on government regulation, it is tough to see government do it.
9,000 inspectors.
Yeah, $25 million industry the government created. So anyways,
Yeah.
Take care, guys.
They sure did.
Take care. So that was Representative McKay, and so we just got out of.
He did the presentation. He did the presentation on the vehicle safety inspection.
Yeah, but they don't know. We haven't told them that we did that yet. But so I just want to say, so moving away, we've talked about 17th Amendment, but then we just got out of a committee meeting where I got the chance to testify. If you were watching Thomas's live stream, then you saw me on there too. But
so long.
It was a long committee meeting. But basically,
but
it
that's
was
like he said.
That's like
$25 million industry on the line with that bill. Now it's not a law yet. It's just gone out of committee back to the House.
Now it's got to go to the Senate, and the Senate's got to pass it through committee. Well, the House has to vote on it and approve it, and then after the House votes and approves it, then it's going to go to the Senate for their committee, and if they pass it through and then it gets voted on by the Senate, then it'll go to the governor for approval.
Was that vote on party lines? Was that vote on party lines?
I don't think so.
I don't think it was. I know there was a couple Democrats.
There were 3 votes nay, and the rest of the votes were for it. But okay, so what it was
oh yeah, we have to tell them what it was.
The removing vehicle inspection requirements, safety inspection requirements in the state of Utah. Just they had some great an economics professor from BYU and one of their students that's done a big extensive study on this, where they took all this data and compiled it to try and see if there were any trends where there were other states that in 2009 and 2010 they got rid of their vehicle safety inspections, and to see if from that time to today if there was a noticeable increase in the number of car-related fatalities or accidents, and there was none.
Not really anything appreciable. And the thing is, the room was full of Jiffy Lube mechanics and also owners of Jiffy Lube and other industry related to cars, rentals. There were lobbyists. And the fact is, it's not a crime to be stupid, lazy, or ignorant. And so you can't create an industry of 9,000 safety inspectors that make $25 million a year based on something that's not a crime. I know people are trying to be proactive, but honestly, that's so much self-interest. And so when they lost on that, the bill being approved as far as moving forward, they just left. They were angry, and I totally get it. I totally do.
Right. Well, your livelihood, but that is protectionism at its best.
You said that in the thing, and I streamed it.
Well, because
he said that when he testified. Randall testified. I haven't even testified this week. What a wimp. Good job, man.
I'm so tired. I shouldn't have got up there. I was just like, I don't think I can do this.
You literally said I was a menace on the road because I was tired, but it has nothing to do with my vehicle safety.
Yeah. but that's the point. It's because the safety of cars has increased so much. This legislation has just turned into protectionism. We're just protecting a specific industry that profits from performing these. I mean, Not to say, I mean, Jiffy Lube was there, and not that Jiffy Lube's the only place, but the only time I've ever gone into Jiffy Lube, I came in for the $14, $20 inspection, and I left with a $150 bill. And they are really good at that.
Well, they say 25 million, but that's probably just for the
inspections.
What about all the ancillary costs on top of that? Because if you're there, you might as well get an oil change or whatever else they recommend. They'll tell you, if they do the inspection, they'll say you need to change your air filter. I've been through this a lot, like you have. And the other thing too is this reminds me of another industry. Solar industry. There are millions and millions of dollars at stake when you have big companies like Vivint Solar. We have solar companies down in St. George because we have over 300 days of sun a year.
Yeah, lots of sun.
It's all subsidized, and I read a long article and study about it. All these companies are popping up because of the government incentives. And you're going to see in a few years, if government pulls back on that, you will see tons of solar companies go out of business because that's the only reason they exist.
Well, what happened? I mean, under Obama's administration, there was Solyndra, where they gave them a whole bunch of the bailout money to put people to work, and they still failed with $500 million. Come on.
You just can't subsidize something that's not a natural market occurrence. And now I'm not anti-solar, and a socialist listening to this would think, oh, you want people to have alternative energy. No, I just don't want you to force me to pay for it, especially if it's not profitable, because there you had Jiffy Lube today that just lost millions of dollars. Well, potentially lost millions of dollars.
Yeah, still got to be fully approved. Come on, don't jump the gun. So, so be aware.
And it is the House of Reps. So
if that's a passionate thing, it's something you're passionate about, you want to see passed, then what was the bill number? Anyway, we need to.
We can't look it up because we're on our phones.
Yeah, we're both on our phones.
Anyway, we're the best. We are your full-service political
Thomas will put the bill number in the comments.
Maybe I'll get to it. Just anyway, go to le.gov or le.utah.gov
and search for what? What was the name of it? I don't even remember.
Vehicle safety.
Anyway, yeah, vehicle safety inspections, and so we're going to need people that show up to testify before the Senate committee to help that pass.
Or find out who your representatives and senators are and go contact them. They'll know what the bill is, or they'll have their interns get it for you, and then you can give them your opinion. But yeah, it's a little victory. It's not a full one battle, but it's great. So we got messages here. I can't read all that. Hi to everybody. We're seeing your comments. You guys are awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
This has come living 4.5 hours away from this. This has been kind of it just takes a lot of time and resources to do. So you guys share and you like our pages and you subscribe to our videos. If you haven't, then you can do that now. We'll wait.
Serious?
Did you do it?
Wait. Did you do it? Okay.
Thank you for doing that also. No, we appreciate you guys, you pyros. That's why we call you pyros, because you're on fire. All right. Rob Bishop.
Yes.
Representative Rob Bishop spoke on the floor of the House. And what did he have to say, Randall? I actually didn't hate what he had to say.
Well, I was admiring his white hair most of the time. Anyway, he was talking about federalism and how it was important for us to return to federalism. So back to this same topic we were talking about right at the first, with having the states have influence and can help and control and whatnot, and how we don't have that right now. And so he wants to see federalism return, and what he's doing in Washington, D.C. to help see that happen.
Yep.
But again, without the 17th Amendment, it has nothing. The 17th Amendment was the teeth to everything regarding the states having input in the federal government. And without it, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter.
Well, it's really hard we got to give a little less pressure on our representatives, or blame that they are so beholden to the federal government. State governments are representing the will of their constituents, and many of the constituents in this country, Americans, are the beneficiaries of work programs, welfare, education. I mean, we're all benefiting in some way. Like Bastiat says, we don't wish to profit off the system, but we all do in some way.
Right.
So a lot of times we curse the government for these things when really it's our neighbor, as part of the group that's supporting these things, Social Security,
and
Medicare.
We may even be doing it and not realize it. Just benefiting from some governmental program, which maybe we were buying our house and we just signed that paper. We didn't realize that it was gonna indebt or cause our children to be in greater debt because of our choices, but we bought the house. We signed the paper that they told us to sign, and now we did it. So we benefited from it, but we didn't even realize it. There's so much of that that's just totally infused throughout our daily our daily experience, and it's hard to get away from it because it is just there.
It's just there. We were born with it, and this is a intergenerational problem. If you think about Social Security, government should not force anyone to subsidize the retirement of anyone. Pensions, all of that stuff should not be done at the force of a gun, which is government. But here we are 80 years later, and 1930s voters, their ghosts, are still putting their hands in our businesses' pockets to pull out FICA and to pull out Medicare taxes. And that's fundamentally unjust. That's taxation without representation. We never conceded to that. And it doesn't make all retirees bad people, but they bought a box of rocks. They got a bill of goods, and their children and their grandchildren, great-grandchildren are going to pay the price for that for who knows how many generations. So,
right.
So that's fundamentally important that we have these little victories like tonight with stop subsidizing the inspection industry, Jiffy Lube and all those, and we just keep peeling back that rotten onion, and slowly over time as a state especially. I mean, honestly, when I saw Rob Bishop speak today, I've kind of written off the federal government altogether. I just don't care about them. I feel like they're a giant secret combination. A lot of them are involved in conspiracy, and some of them are just so ignorant and tools of the political parties. That's pretty clear how I feel about them.
Yeah.
They don't keep their oaths to God to defend.
Make sure you hold back a little bit there.
And they're all weenies. And so, but the point is, the state government is probably the most powerful body that exists outside of everyday Americans that we can actually push back. And I've seen some good things, even though I get frustrated. There are some good representatives that are working hard.
That's right.
Hi.
Hello. So yeah, we saw some tough things today. I wish he was here.
All the reps and the senators down in the rotunda, and we could just yell at them from this balcony and teach them about the 17th Amendment. We're on a roll here.
Oh, well, that's the thing that I didn't get to say about the 17th Amendment is here. So here we talked about that. So I'm gonna go back here for a minute,
please.
But here we're seeing this call for an Article 5 convention or convention of the states that was sponsored in the House and then in the Senate. And the individual who's sponsoring it in the Senate, Evan Vickers, my senator,
me too.
He just doesn't understand because he was, I assume, sponsoring it for some of the same reasons that the representative was sponsoring it in the House. But if he really understood, then he'd understand that the 17th Amendment is really the root of that, and that's what's led to most of the egregious growth of government. But when he was in his last election, Casey Anderson, that's the name, individual who ran against him in the last election, the last two elections, he called out Casey Anderson and said that he was an awful person for thinking that we should get rid of the 17th Amendment and how bad that would be. And I think he's really uneducated about this topic. And he's in a state that didn't want it, obviously. So what did our forebears think about it? Anyway, so I want to have a conversation with him about that and help him understand that what he really wants to do is what he says that his opponent in the race was stupid for doing. So
well, I asked a sitting senator, U.S. Senator Mike Lee. I said, "Would you ever support repealing the 17th Amendment, which is the senator amendment?" And he said yes, but it'll never happen. So even I don't think he would say that unless he really believed it. Now, he knows he's safe in saying, sure, I would get rid of it today. Use it for toilet paper. But the fact is, the states have to assert that. And I do love, once again, that Utah voted no on it.
Yeah.
It's just awesome.
I love that too.
Because we're bad.
Thank you, state.
Thank you, state ghosts of days past. And okay, so anything else we did today? I mean,
those are the big ones. We sat in on the Senate and the House, and we went to a couple of those committee meetings, but that was the big stuff tonight. Oh man, that committee, both the committee meetings were just full.
They were.
And they were busy and they were long. But that last one was really helpful and insightful to see that passed through committee, and that we may, because John Dougal, he was there, our state auditor, which I love. I think he's really conservative as far as when it comes to money, which is what the auditor is supposed to do, trying to make sure that we're not spending lots of money.
And he said hi to me.
but
First.
when he was in the House, he brought forward this bill 6 years ago, and so they've been working on it, refining it, and doing this research that they presented today in order to get it to this point. So hopefully we're finally to a point where it's going to let it rip and get rid of it. But we still have to get past the Senate, and there aren't that many of them in there. So it should be easier.
Hey, you know what I've noticed though? Like if you're actually nice to politicians, to these legislators, when they do something good, they'll actually listen to you. I complimented Todd Weiler, Senator Weiler, who I disagree with, quite often, on his sociability, meaning
accessibility.
Just sociability, because I said nobody can fault you for that, because he will get on the unofficial Republican page on Facebook and on Instagram, and he will interact with you, and he will fight with you, and he will debate you back and forth. And I think, hey, I respect someone I disagree with if they engage with me, if they care enough to show me they care about my argument. And they may totally disagree, but I appreciate someone that. So I went and said hi to Senator DeBackus, who is probably the most progressive Democrat in this House.
Right.
But I feel like we need to be nice to people when they do things that are good. Like Senator DeBackus probably get a 10% rating with me as far as the things I support that he supports. However, when he gets that 10% right, he needs to hear it. Because if we tell them they're champions of liberty when they are, and champions of freedom, they're going to feel good about that, and they're going to be more apt to do that, and to take, because they have to take brave stands when they do this. They really do. Like to go against the party leadership and the heads of the committee and stake your claim. Like I've been really critical of Greg Hughes, the Speaker of the House, but he's the reason Medicaid was not expanded in Utah. We like that. And he's also the one that's standing up against Bears Ears National Monument. And we caught him in the hall today, and I was able to tell him how much we appreciate that. Well, he said he actually knows who we are, and he saw that I shared his social post the other night, the specific one about Bears Ears. So when you compliment them and you pinpoint when they're doing what's right, instead of just shouting at them and saying they're all losers and evil, which I do plenty of that.
It's good. You win more friends.
It's a good thing.
Attract more flies with honey than you do with vinegar.
Spoonful of sugar,
all that stuff.
Anyway. And I'm proud of Randall for speaking up in the committee, as tired as he was. It was awesome, and he was the only one to say protectionism of all of the awesome from shout out to Americans for Prosperity, shout out to Libertas Institute, shout out to some independent citizens that Steve Palmer. Oh, okay. He's calling us conspirators.
He's going to testify. He's just saying he's going to testify at the Airbnb committee on Monday.
Oh yeah. So Airbnb is illegal in a lot of places in Utah. In fact, that's what Connor Boyack was saying. He's got a hot date with his wife. They're going to go stay in an Airbnb in Utah Valley because it's illegal in Utah Valley, and he's going to go do it anyway.
Right. Well, and so that's an interesting thing, because here you have some different things that are conflicting. So that's a good. Maybe we'll finish with this one.
Yep.
But anyway, so with the Airbnb, the issue is that the mic is attached to your coat.
Oh man!
Just by the way, you may want to.
Can you tell how tired we are?
You may want
3 days here.
Pick that up.
I got it.
Okay. Can you hear me? Not very good. Okay.
Can you tell how tired we are?
Anyway, so Airbnb, it's illegal in a lot of cities because they claim that people coming in to use your house causes lots of excess traffic. It could introduce people that are going to steal and whatever else, and that could be a really bad thing.
So the house you live in?
Yeah, you're going to let them be in the house you live in, and you're okay with that. But the people next door could be in harm's way.
I always drive down to the prison when they're releasing prisoners at the end of their term, and I have them come use my Airbnb because I'm totally into people vandalizing my house. I want criminals in my house. You see what a dumb argument that is?
Yeah, and so cities tend to like to ban Airbnb because it gives them some control. I mean, they may want to protect the hotels, and so they don't let people stay in Airbnb houses because then they can make sure that their hotels, their big fundraisers are taken care of there. And at the end of the day, you'd think, well, so this legislation is supposed to force the cities to allow them, okay? And so I've talked with a couple people who are like, well, wait a second, you're not supposed to have the state force the lower, the cities to do it. But the way it works in Utah is that the state is the core, and the cities are a creation of the state. They're an incorporation under the state, so they receive all their rights or abilities to levy laws and take care of taxes or whatever comes because of grants from the state. So the state really is the most powerful entity, and so this is the proper path to take in the state, saying that no, this is not. You're not allowed to just tell them that they can't do it. We're going to make them legal everywhere, carte blanche. And there's a lot of opposition to this. The League of Cities, Towns and Cities, or whatever they're totally against this. They don't want to see it happen, and so it'll be interesting to see what happens in the committee. So if you can be here, come,
the League
testify.
Of Cities and Counties, I would do away with. Yeah, I had those concerns. I don't like the state telling cities and counties what to do, although the state political entity is different as a governmental entity than the feds. People don't really look into federalism and what that means as far as states and the national government versus how states work in counties. I still don't like it, but it does enforce freedom. But the point of it for me that I have a problem with is that, well, what if the state does other things that is anti-freedom? So it's good in this case, but it's often bad in other cases. So we just have to stop them in all the other bad cases, which comes down to eternal vigilance.
You just got to be active.
But you know what I call Airbnb?
What?
Air bread and butter. You know why I call it that? Because we have a great friend named Stephen Palmer who was making $1,000 a month. Okay, that's $12,000 a year. That's bread and butter. That's your core income or side income. That is awesome. I mean, think of what that does to supplant your income and give you a better lifestyle.
And he lost the ability to do his Airbnb because of a complaint from someone who a neighbor who wasn't really impacted. They just found out they were doing it and decided to complain.
And they
couldn't get anyone who could testify that yes, they've been negatively impacted by it. They're just worried.
And the mayor admitted it was stupid, the ordinance in the city of Bloomington, but he lives 2 doors down from our friend.
Yeah, and he had no idea it was going on.
Yeah, he doesn't care, honestly.
So it's just arbitrary. It wasn't based on principle. It wasn't based on, there's a study that says this. It was just no, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, and there's one of our viewers, Sean, is saying that our friend was pissed at the town hall meeting and voiced his concern, yet was turned down, and it was heated. He got really angry, but when you take $12,000 out of someone's pocket for doing no crime, and think about it, in their own home where they maintain it and they want to keep a good quality, you advertise on Airbnb, you've got to have a nice spread. You got to show nice so people want to come stay. So it's a fundamental win for the community. And so that's the thing that really angered our friend Steve, is that is a lot of money, $1,000 a month, just to rip out of someone's pocket because you don't like something.
Well, the interesting thing is, I like the way that Connor Boyack put it when he was talking about this with the Libertas Institute. He mentioned that the difference is you can have people come and stay for short term. I mean, like grandma, she comes and stays, and she can stay there for months on end, short term or long term, and there's no problem. But as soon as she pays rent, like maybe she bakes brownies, is that rent? Or maybe she buys groceries because she feels bad that she's eating your food. Is that rent? And as soon as she does that, then she becomes the menace. So this isn't about safety or protection of the neighborhood's safety or quiet or whatever. This is all about protectionism and just having interesting rules and laws. Because when these rules were all created, that the cities create their zoning laws around, it was years and years and years ago, long before, early 1900s.
Oh,
and so none of this was around, none of it was available, none of it was even thought of. So it's just old bad legislation that doesn't account for the abilities we have
that's
today.
what Sean's saying too. The argument that Stephen was in violation of the city code. That's true.
Right.
That's in the code, which shouldn't have been in the code, and that's a throwback for decades. So that's the point, is that we need to push our fellow citizens to be willing to embrace freedom, and that's what the argument is always going to be: safety and security versus liberty and freedom. So that's the tough thing.
Yeah. Anyway, so if you can get up here to testify about that, or just show your support, I mean, it makes a big difference, especially if you're You know, just an individual. That's when I testified. I'm like, I'm not with the. Even though I was here with Pyrolytical Radio, that wasn't why I was testifying. I was just here representing myself, and I let them know I came up from Southern Utah, long drive, and what was the comment? I had too little sleep, and I came up here because this was important to me, and so I was a bigger hazard on the road than my car would have been without an inspection.
Yeah, at first when you said that, I was like, what? That doesn't make it, oh, that is a good argument.
Anyway, so, but it makes a difference. It makes a difference. So if you can come up here on Monday and be a part of that, do it. Do it.
The only malfunction here is owner-operators. That's us. We're both
there. Yeah, over 90% of accidents on the road is just because of bad drivers.
Yeah,
but I'm above average,
sure.
So that made up for it.
That's what your mom told you.
Oh.
Yeah. So I spent 3 days up here, and I'll come up today, and I think it made a difference. I think it's great. What time is the Airbnb hearing?
I don't know. We'll have to see if we can get it in the comments afterwards, after we're done.
Hey, thanks, guys. It tells me congratulations. This is your most liked live video yet.
Awesome.
Hey,
Thank you.
If you're watching, can you give us each give us a like? Just go ahead.
We're waiting.
Doesn't work.
Doesn't like it. Okay.
You actually have to say something people like. That's ridiculous.
Also, if you can or want to, go to our YouTube channel. We got our Pyrolytical, youtube.com/pyrolytical, or if you search, can't give it a fancy URL yet, but if you search for Pyrolytical Live, you can get where we're streaming this on Pyrolytical as well.
Pyrolytical Live has all the live stuff like this. We
do this every
6 episodes of the Pyrocast, which is our weekly
just this year.
broadcast.
Yeah, so every week, 7 p.m., we do a live internet radio broadcast, and then we record it and we upload it to YouTube. And we hope to be able to have that live stream too eventually. So 7 p.m.
Hey, thank you, Sean.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sean, and thank you to all you who've been with us. We have some exciting things coming up in the future. We are regular Joes, so everything we do is just, as we do them. And so
that was profound.
Everything we do is as it is done, and when it is done.
So,
but we appreciate that we are just supported by people like you. We don't have any ties to any political group other than just like you do. We're just active. So. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, everyone who's tuned in. And you can watch this broadcast again if you want it on our YouTube channel. It's live, it's there. So,
yeah.
Sweet.
Anyway, thanks for being with us. And I think that's it.
Yeah.
Thanks for being with us.
We're with you in freedom, our friends.
We're going to go get some sleep now because I'm tired.
I'm going to stay up all night and work. That's how we do.
Bye.
Bye-bye.